Many of the top racers in the world know when to be patient and when to be aggressive during a race. Let's talk to a few of them and see what their thoughts are on how they balance patience with aggression. Hey everybody, welcome back to Begin Again. You know, back in the fall of 2023, my buddies Paul, Bob, and I went out to Las Vegas to cover the Rok Vegas kart race. Had a great time out there, and one of the things that was really interesting to me is that standing out on the corners, watching some of the very top karters in the world, it became obvious that a lot of these guys, depending on how their karts were set up, depending on what the traffic was doing, they just took a very measured approach. In some laps, they were very patient. Other laps, they were quite aggressive. And nobody drove that home more than Ryan Norberg. I was watching Ryan, he was driving in the Rok Senior race, and I was amazed at how this guy would come up through the field. He had a bad qualifying, and he would just take his time, look for the right opportunities, and then pounce. It was really an interesting masterclass, really, and what does it look like to drive and balance aggression with patience. And so I never got to catch up with Ryan and really talk to him about his thoughts about that. But there's an old saying that goes something like this: every dud knows a stud. And I can tell you something, this dud knows several studs. So I went and talked to Jordon Musser. I talked to Martin Stone about how do they balance patience with aggression. Let's see what they have to say.
You have figured out when to be aggressive and when to be patient. What is your mental process? How do you go through that?
It's a good question. So it's a combination of factors. How my cart feels, how their cart looks, where I think they're coming in. If I purposely set the go-kart to be fast at the beginning of the race and not the end. If I feel like I'm going to have a good long-run cart, I'll be more patient at the beginning. If I feel like I have a good short-run cart, maybe I'm struggling even to keep up with a short-run setup, I'll be super aggressive at the beginning. Because I know my only shot at winning is to make the pass early and hold them off. So it really comes down to a lot of factors. And I don't make that decision before I'm on the grid. I make that decision second, third lap based on what I'm seeing out of them, typically. Because it's not about beating myself, it's about beating the other guy. So I need to be in the right position at the right time against that person. But typically in karting, you should take all opportunities. So it's a risk assessment at that point. You know, is this a 70% chance or a 50% chance or a 30% chance move? And I might make a 30% chance move at the beginning if I feel there's no chance of winning unless I do. Pretty rare that I have that opinion of the situation. So I usually try to defend and be smart the first 2 or 3 laps and then make my decision. Sometimes I'll make a 30% move on the 5th lap if I think I need to. But I try to stay in the 70% plus range. So I like finishing races, and I don't want to take someone out being so stupid, you know, and I want them to do the same thing to me. Yep. So I tend to race 70+% moves, which sometimes means more patience because I can't, you know, a 50% move, I might be able to make that decision earlier in the race. But to make a 70% plus, you're waiting for the right opportunity. And the opportunity usually means you have a good run, you found a little bit in the corner, and they've had a slight mistake. That's when you make a 70% move. Anything other than that situation, it's usually a low percentage move.
Getting some really interesting answers, and I'm going to ask you this question. You're one of these guys that also knows when to be patient, but he also knows when to be aggressive. Yeah. What's going through your brain as you're driving and you say, okay, now's the time to be patient, as opposed to, yeah, now's the time I got to go for it? How do you think about that?
I think a lot of it in the top 4, these are guys I've raced with for the last 3 years. So you know when their cart's going to be strong as well, when they're weak, when they're vulnerable. So like in the first heat, we caught up to the second guy and just stayed in 3rd. I didn't want to be going off grid 2 for the next heat. So it's just knowing when to go. And was it a risk worth taking to go for second? No, not for the first heat. Like I said, just getting there, scoring points, and then going off the front for the final now. So.
Okay, so you're playing the long game.
Yes.
So some really, really interesting thoughts, and I think what's really cool about the very top drivers, they have so much seat time. During a race, they're just kind of sitting back in the seat, relaxing. They're not thinking about driving. That's a subconscious action for them. What they're doing is they're sizing up the competition. They're thinking about their chassis setup, all those kinds of things. Seat time, seat time, seat time, obviously. So I think for me, the real message here is that the more seat time you get, the more you're able to go and be strategic and balance that patience with that aggression. Thanks for joining us for this segment of Begin Again. I hope you found this information useful to you. We've got lots more technical content coming, more racing content coming as we move more and more into 2024. Thanks for joining us. I'm heading out to the racetrack. We'll see you soon.